Hi, I'm Lorraine. I woke up from a coma and found out my mother-in-law had taken custody of my kids, legally. She forged my name, erased me from their school, and told them I left because I didn't love them. But that wasn't even the worst part. What happens when the people closest to you rewrite your life, while you're too broken to fight back? Would you let them? Or burn it all down to get your children back? The beeping was the first thing I heard. Steady, clinical, impersonal. My eyelids fluttered open, heavy and unfamiliar, like they belonged to someone else. I blinked through the sterile blur of the hospital room, the ceiling tiles above me sharp-edged in the fluorescent light. My mouth was dry, my throat raw. Where are my kids? The words scraped out of me like gravel. The nurse appeared at my side, voice soft, rehearsed. They're with your mother-in-law. She has temporary custody, just until you recover. That phrase. It landed heavier than any IV drip in my arm. Temporary custody. Like I'd been replaced, filed away while someone else filled in the space I used to occupy. I didn't feel like a mother. I felt like a ghost haunting the idea of one. No Alan, no phone, no flowers, not even a crayon drawing taped to the wall. It was like I'd never existed in their lives to begin with. For 3 days I laid in that bed, gathering strength and pieces of the story from passing nurses, overheard conversations, and the silence Alan left in his absence. Carol hadn't just stepped in, she had taken over. One night a familiar face appeared, Renee. She came after visiting hours, slipped past the nurses with that determined calm she always wore when something was broken and she planned to fix it. "I brought something you need to see," she said, and handed me an envelope. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside, court filings. Carol had petitioned for emergency guardianship. The justification? My medical incapacity, my unknown recovery timeline. Her sworn statement claimed I'd been unstable even before the accident. The paperwork was already stamped, already signed. On paper, I wasn't their mother anymore. I was a case number in a sealed envelope. "She waited until I couldn't fight back," I said, my voice flat. "She was preparing for it long before the accident," Renee replied. As the word sunk in, a second envelope slid into my lap. This is worse. It was a copy of a school registration form, my name scribbled in Carol's cursive. A forged signature authorizing medical decisions, school pickups, everything a legal guardian could access. "She forged me," I whispered, rage clawing its way up my spine. "She didn't just take the kids, she erased me." Renee didn't argue. She let the silence do its job. She knew I wasn't ready for comfort. I needed facts and fury. "Can I fight this?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Renee hesitated. "Only if you're ready to remember everything." I gripped the rail of the hospital bed, my jaw tight. "Then let's remember everything." The school looked the same. Red brick walls, cracked pavement, sunlight bouncing off the flagpole like it had a purpose. But stepping onto campus felt like stepping into someone else's life. I adjusted my blazer. No makeup, just clean skin and a steady voice. That was the plan. Be calm, be capable. The receptionist didn't recognize me. "I'm Lorraine Hoyt. I'm here to check on my children, Sadie and Micah." She blinked, then smiled. "Oh, I thought, isn't Carol their guardian now?" My hands curled slightly. "I'm their mother." She nodded too quickly. "Right, of course. Let me grab the principal. Just sit tight." I waited on a bench near the front office. Children's drawings lined the hallway, and somewhere down the corridor, a bell rang. I closed my eyes, trying to match the bell's tone with a memory. Sadie's giggle, Micah's lopsided backpack. The door creaked open. "Lorraine," the principal said, "we weren't expecting you." "I don't need to be expected. I just need to see my children's files." He hesitated, then said it. "You're no longer listed on the contact sheet. Legally, we can't show you anything." I stared at him. "You're telling me I don't exist in their records?" He looked away. Carol submitted updated forms. Behind him, a bulletin board caught my eye. Photos from the reading fair. Carol stood in the middle, arms draped around Sadie and Micah, grinning like she'd invented motherhood. The caption read, "Thank you to Sadie's mom, Carol Kavanaugh." I walked out without another word. The air outside was thick with heat. I pressed my palm against the driver's side door just to feel something real. Back inside the school, a second attempt. I circled around to the classroom wings, found room 112. Sadie sat at a table near the window, head bent over a worksheet. Micah was beside her, legs swinging beneath the chair. I tapped the glass. Neither looked up. The teacher turned instead, opening the door a crack. "Can I help you?" "I'm their mother." Her expression didn't change. "Oh." Carol didn't mention a visit. She offered me a volunteer flyer, the kind printed on bright pink paper. "We're always looking for helping hands." Helping hands. I didn't take it. "Micah?" I called gently. He looked up. Sadie didn't. Then he tugged her sleeve. She whispered something I couldn't hear. The teacher closed the door. I left again. The counselor's office wasn't hard to find. A plaque outside read, "Helping Hearts Start Here." I walked in and asked about Sadie's accommodations. Her individualized education plan. The counselor opened a drawer. Carol opted out. She said Sadie didn't need the label. "She has dyslexia," I said slowly. "It's not a label, it's a diagnosis." She felt Sadie just needed more structure. She felt? "I'm sorry, without legal authorization." I turned and left before I said something I couldn't take back. Sitting in the car, I pulled out the old report from my bag. Sadie's IEP. Her progress, her challenges, her strengths. Pages full of highlighted reading benchmarks, goal charts. Her handwriting, uneven but proud, at the bottom of one page. "I want to read like Mommy." I pressed the paper to my chest. "You're not lazy. You're brilliant." My fingers trembled as I called Renee. "I'm ready," I said. She didn't ask for what. "Then I have something to show you first." The house felt colder than it should have for a spring morning. I sat at the kitchen table, still in my robe, a cup of untouched coffee cooling by my hand. All night I'd been sifting through documents, IEP records, school emails, Carol's carefully constructed paper trail. One message stood out. A notice from the school district. Request to withdraw from services submitted by Carol Kavanaugh. No signature line, no mention of me. I started building a timeline on the back of an old grocery receipt. Dates, decisions, consequences. The more I wrote, the more the truth formed its shape in front of me. She had removed every scaffold Sadie needed just to appear like the savior. When Renee showed up, I handed her the printouts without a word. She flipped through them, nodding slowly. The school counselor confirmed it. "Sadie hasn't had a single support session in weeks. They thought it was your choice." She was finally starting to believe she wasn't broken, I murmured. "Her grades are slipping," Renee added. "The teacher said she's falling behind but bright." "No," I said, sharper than I meant to. "This isn't falling behind. This is being left behind." The doorbell rang. Renee and I froze. I opened it to a courier holding a manila envelope and a clipboard. "Delivery for Lorraine Hoyt," I signed, already feeling the familiar weight of betrayal before I'd even broken the seal. Inside was a filed no-contact order, filed by Alan. The affidavit read, "Due to Mrs. Hoyt's recent medical condition and emotional volatility, I respectfully request supervised communication only, to avoid disruption to the children's routine under current guardianship." My name was there, multiple times in print, but the version of me Alan described didn't exist. Not anymore, maybe not even before. "She provides a more stable routine," he'd written. "The children are thriving." I let out one breath, dry, hollow. It wasn't a sob, it was laughter without joy. "So this is how cowards fight," I said. Renee's voice was careful. "You still want to sue?" "I want custody," I said. "And I want a courtroom." She gave one nod. No questions. We were past doubt. Later that night, after Renee left, I climbed into the attic. The air was thick with dust and time. In a corner box I hadn't touched in years, I found what I was looking for, the old lockbox Alan once called my paranoia chest. Inside were printed voicemails. Carol's voice filled the paper, etched in timestamps and contempt. I picked up the phone and dialed. A voice answered. Familiar, dry. "You're calling me again? This must be serious." I didn't hesitate. "I need to rehire your services." A pause. Then, "You're serious this time?" I closed my eyes and saw Sadie's face. Micah's hands clenching his backpack. My own name erased from school records, from their bedtime stories. Serious enough to burn everything down. I walked into the mediation room thinking it was a formality. A step, a box to check, the kind of legal process designed to look neutral while it slowly chewed you alive. Carol was already seated. Her posture screamed grace. Her eyes held calculation. Alan sat beside her, not quite making eye contact. His lawyer adjusted papers with surgical calm. Mine hadn't arrived yet. "Thank you all for coming," the mediator began. I didn't sit. The first 30 seconds passed in pleasantries I didn't recognize. Phrases like, "in the best interest of the children," and "emotional neutrality." Then Carol pulled out a manila folder and slid it across the table. "This should be considered before any visitation is finalized," she said. I opened it. My chest tightened. 12 years ago, my postpartum therapy report, taken completely out of context. "Persistent fatigue and emotional detachment in early infancy care," Carol read aloud, like a bedtime story made of poison. Alan didn't say a word. "You're weaponizing healing," I said quietly. Carol folded her hands. "We're protecting the children." The mediator shifted uncomfortably. "Let's take a break and regroup in 15. I walked into the hallway, my legs buzzing, not from weakness, rage. When they called me back in, I was given 10 minutes. Supervised visitation. Sadie and Micah entered the room, escorted by a school counselor. Sadie wore her backpack even though she didn't need to. Micah's hands were shoved into his pockets. "Hi, baby," I said. Sadie looked up and smiled, politely. "Hi, Miss Lorraine." The counselor's face twitched. Micah glanced between us, then dropped his gaze. Behind the glass, Carol smiled like she'd won a spelling bee. I knelt to Sadie's eye level, hoping she'd blink and remember. But she didn't. The counselor spoke too quickly. "Time's up." Back in the car, I sat with the engine off and the windows rolled up. The silence stretched like smoke. I reached into the glove box, pulled out my wedding ring, and stared at it. They broke her first. Next, it's Micah. The phone rang. "Renee, you ready to file the petition?" "No," I said. "I'm ready to build a fire." When I got home, I pulled out the voice recorder from the back of my drawer, clicked it on. This is for the day they ask what I did to fight back. I arrived at the visitation center early, gripping the worn edges of Sadie's old sketchbook like it was a lifeline. My hands felt clammy, but I forced myself to breathe, steady, grounded. This was the first time I'd be allowed to see them in weeks. 10 minutes, supervised, no hugs, no gifts, no physical contact beyond a handshake. The room was too clean, sanitized, a place designed for broken bonds wrapped in laminated guidelines. Carol stood behind the one-way glass, her arms folded like she was watching a soap opera she'd already seen the ending of. Then the door opened, and Sadie and Micah walked in, hesitantly, like stepping into fog. "Hey, baby girl," I said, crouching slightly. "Hi, Micah." Micah looked up briefly. Sadie clutched her backpack to her chest. They sat. I slid the sketchbook forward across the table. "Remember this?" I asked softly. "You drew the moon with dragon wings in it. You said it was for when you had dreams that needed armor." Sadie glanced at the book, then away. My heart sank a little deeper. The minutes passed like syrup. Then the counselor announced, 2 minutes. Sadie looked over her shoulder, toward the glass. Carol wasn't looking at her. She was mouthing something, slowly, clearly. Sadie's posture straightened. She stood, turned to me, and smiled, but didn't move closer. As she left, she reached for Carol's hand, and that's when Carol leaned down, her voice just loud enough for me to hear through the glass. "She's not the one who tucks you in at night. That's what makes a real mom." I froze. My jaw clenched, fists curled tight on my lap. The counselor didn't blink. I walked out without another word. The next hour passed in haze until a knock at my door pulled me back to now. Cleo. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "I shouldn't have waited this long," she said, stepping in. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled out her phone, scrolling, then pressing play. It was Sadie's voice. Quiet, small, confused. "If she tries to hug you, you don't hug back. You don't hug liars," Carol said. "Even if she's my mommy?" Sadie asked. Carol's voice hardened. "Especially if she says that." The clip ended. I didn't cry. I sat in my car for a long time, playing the recording on loop until the words stopped sounding like words and started feeling like blades. In my journal, I wrote 2 words: evidence, custody. Then I texted Renee. Pull the old files, we go on a fence. As I reached for the keys, Cleo's voice broke through. I have more, she said. I turned to her. You're not the only one Carol tried to silence. My throat felt dry. Would you testify? She didn't flinch. I'll testify. I'll burn it all down. The audio clip lived in my head long after it stopped playing. Sadie's voice, faint and hesitant, whispering over fabric. She's mine. The first time I heard it, it cracked something open. The second time, it filled that crack with fire. By the 5th time, I wasn't just listening, I was planning. I spread the documents across my kitchen counter, the forged IEP withdrawals, the doctored emails Carol had sent to the school, Cleo's written statement. A pattern emerged, and for once it didn't just make me ache, it made me act. At 9:04 a.m., I walked into the school counselor's office without an appointment. Miss Hoyt, she said, startled. We weren't expecting. I slid a folder across her desk. I know, that's the problem. Inside was everything she'd missed while believing Carol's version of events. The counselor flipped through the pages, her mouth pressing into a thin line. I'll review these. Do that, I said. Because if you don't, I'll be reviewing them again with a judge. She didn't speak, but I saw her expression shift, fear disguised as formality. Later that afternoon, Renee called. Are you sitting down? I don't sit much anymore. They terminated my contract. My stomach dropped. What? Anonymous email sent to the firm's board. Accused me of tampering with evidence. All false, but they didn't want the heat. There was a pause, then the rustle of a flash drive. They sent this too, untraceable, but the message read, back off or lose more. I met her that evening in her apartment, a place that always smelled faintly of coffee and burnt lavender. Her eyes were tired, but her spine was steel. She's not just coming after you, she said. She's silencing anyone who stands beside you. 16 years ago, I'd let Carol rewrite my narrative in the delivery room. She told the nurses what I needed, what I didn't. When I cried through exhaustion, she told Alan I was unstable. No one stopped her, no one corrected her, and I was too weak, too eager to be liked, to stop her myself. But now? I stared at the flash drive, then opened my laptop and made a copy. The next morning, I slipped a manila envelope addressed to the school board into the outgoing mail bin. No return address. Just one line on the note inside. She's not just dangerous to me. She's dangerous to any child in her reach. As I turned to leave, I passed my reflection in the hallway mirror. For the first time in years, I didn't look away. The email came through Renee's inbox just after midnight. She called me before the sun came up, her voice brittle around the edges. There's another one. I didn't need to ask what she meant. We warned you. Your license is next, she read aloud. Then silence. There was a deep fake photo attached, me altering a court document. It's fake, but professional. She didn't cry. Renee didn't break easy, but that morning her voice cracked like old paint. She's not trying to destroy just you anymore, she said. She's coming after anyone standing next to you. I was already in the car. The drive to Mrs. Garner's didn't take long. Her house sat 2 blocks over, tucked behind a tall wooden fence that always made me feel unwelcome. After the coma, she'd waved once, but never stopped. Never asked. She knew something. I rang the bell twice. When she opened the door, her face went pale. I'm not here to argue, I said. I just need to know. Did you see what she did to my daughter? She didn't answer, just stepped aside. In her kitchen, she pulled up footage from her backyard camera. I recognized the yard. Sadie and Micah had played there during a barbecue 3 summers ago, when things were simple. On screen, Carol's voice snapped through the speakers. Your mother left because she's weak. Sadie shrank. Micah flinched. Carol yanked Sadie's wrist just out of frame. I didn't realize I was gripping the edge of the table until my knuckles went white. Mrs. Garner paused the video. I won't testify, she said quickly. She's on every board in this town. Church, school, you name it. She'll ruin me. I nodded. You don't have to speak. Just give me the footage. She slid me a flash drive and looked away. I should have done this sooner. Back in my car, I plugged it into my laptop, rewatched it, rewound it, let it burn into the lining of my memory. Later that night, I opened a burner email account. I uploaded the clip anonymously to the local parenting forum. One Carol moderated. Scheduled it to post at 8 a.m. sharp. I attached no name, no statement, just the video and a headline, "When the Mask Slips." I sat back, my heartbeat calm in the quiet. The courthouse lobby smelled like dust and disinfectant. I clutched the folder against my chest like it might shift the weight in my stomach. Outside, a reporter stood by the steps, camera poised. Carol waved to her like they were old friends. The flash went off. She smiled. I kept walking. Inside the courtroom, the air felt staged. Rows of neutral grays, hushed whispers, the low scrape of heels against tile. The judge entered, and everyone stood. "This hearing determines final custody status," she said. My pulse drummed steady against the inside of my ribs. I counted each exhale. Carol testified first. She was poised, polite. Her tone painted me as a ghost, tragic, fragile, absent. She brought up the accident, then my prior instability. Her lawyer handed the court letters, support from PTA parents, her pastor, Sadie's school principal. "I've provided the children with stability and structure during a time of crisis," Carol said sweetly. "They are thriving." The courtroom nodded along like spectators at a symphony. Then it was my turn. I stood slowly, folder in hand. My voice didn't shake. "I'd like to submit one document and one video file into evidence." The clerk stepped forward. I handed over the drive and a copy of an old report. State of Texas Educator Complaint, Carol Kavanaugh, 2008. The judge scanned the first page. Her eyes narrowed. Pattern of intimidation, suppression of evaluations, emotionally coercive tactics. Whispers rippled across the room. "She didn't change," I said, steady. "She just learned to hide better." The judge continued reading. I watched Carol's face tighten with every sentence. She knew what was in there. She knew I'd found it. What she didn't know was how. 6 months ago, Renee discovered a whistleblower attorney who'd handled sealed educator complaints. One phone call, and the truth had resurfaced. "I was painted unstable because it suited her," I said, "but she's been doing this to children and teachers for decades, including my daughter." Silence. No one moved. The judge leaned back. She placed the file aside, adjusted her glasses, and looked at Carol. "This court finds the conduct of Miss Kavanaugh to be manipulative and unethical." The bailiff walked up and handed her another envelope. The judge opened it, scanning its contents with a slow, deliberate breath. "This just got more complicated," she murmured. I didn't blink. The courtroom was quieter than I expected on the day the final order came through. No reporters, no cameras, just a few rows of tired seats and the sound of paper sliding across a bench. The judge didn't look at Carol when she read the ruling. Full physical and legal custody is granted to the biological mother, Lorraine Hoyt. Supervised visitation for the father. A restraining order is placed against Carol Kavanaugh. 200 feet. No exceptions. Alan didn't speak. He looked relieved, which was somehow worse. He nodded at me once, an empty gesture, and signed the supervised visitation papers with a hand that barely shook. He moved out of state 2 days later. No goodbye, no closure, just absence. I didn't stop him. There's nothing left to fight for when someone never fought for you. At home, the silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was clean. It was space that could finally be filled with something other than grief. Sadie's room was just as she left it. Blankets twisted, books scattered, her old star projector still tucked in the corner. I clicked it on. The ceiling lit up in soft blue dots. Micah walked in behind me, barefoot, carrying her sketch pad. "She's coming home today," he said. I nodded. We picked Sadie up from school together. She ran this time. She didn't hesitate. She didn't check over her shoulder. She dropped her backpack and launched into my arms, all limbs and breath and warmth. "Can we make stars on my ceiling again?" She whispered into my shirt. I pulled back, tears rising. We never stopped. In the weeks that followed, Carol disappeared. Not literally, just enough to feel like fog evaporating. Her church asked her to step down. The parenting forum removed her moderator status. No articles, no headlines, just small consequences that echoed louder than any courtroom gavel. She didn't call, she didn't write, and I didn't need her to. I kept a journal. Some days the pages stayed blank. Others, they bled. Healing didn't come the moment I won. It came the moment Sadie stopped flinching when I reached for her. It came in small hands that no longer pulled away, in questions like, "Can you braid my hair tomorrow?" And, "Will you be there for lunch pickup?" It came in trust, earned, not inherited. One night I sat beside their beds, listening to the slow rhythm of sleep. The stars blinked softly above us, projected onto drywall and dreams. I whispered, "You are safe. You are strong. You are loved." My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown number, one message. "This isn't over." I stared at it, deleted it, didn't flinch. Some battles end in court. Others end in the quiet, where love finally has room to speak. In the quiet after the storm, I learned something I wish I'd known sooner. Sometimes you don't win by screaming louder. You win by refusing to be erased. If there's one thing I can pass on to anyone listening, it's this. Your voice matters, even if it shakes, especially if it shakes. Stand up for yourself when no one else will. Be the kind of strong that doesn't need permission. Because no one has the right to rewrite your story, no matter how close they stand to you or how calm they sound in court. And now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt silenced by someone you trusted? What would you say if you had one chance to reclaim your story? Let's talk about it. Drop a comment below. Type 1 if this story hit your heart. Or tell me where you're watching from. And if it didn't connect with you, I still want to know, what would you change? What part felt real, or not? If you believe in stories that speak truth and fight for healing, don't forget to hit subscribe. There's more to come and I'd love to have you here for it.